I talk about the fact that I came here with an idea of what the American dream is.
Yeah.
And slowly through the years, I checked all the boxes,
Mm.
get a diploma, check,
Yeah.
find a corporate job that you have a badge, a badge number that's assigned to you, check, get the red brick home, check, save
Mm.
for retirement, get that 401k. All of those things I was doing, not necessarily because it was something that I was wanting to do. Is just that was the upbringing, the
Right.
influences from my parents, from society, from
Yeah.
my friends, everybody around me. That's what they were doing, and
Yeah.
that's exactly what drove me. And
Hmm.
for a while, it was good because I had a goal and I had a purpose. But as I got that financial stability, and I was able to check all those boxes, the more I set into being comfortable financially, I started wondering, is there more to my life than just what other people tell me?
So, welcome to the Meaningful Jobs Podcast, Season 2. I'm your host, Adrian, and today I'm extremely honored to welcome Serban onto our podcast. Based on my knowledge, I think he is a speaker and also works in the semiconductor industry. So, a pretty interesting combination. But before we start, first of all, how are you doing, Serban?
Well, thanks for having me, Adrian. It's a pleasure to
No
be on
problem.
your podcast. I'm doing great. Yeah, fantastic. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Great to hear about this. Before I dive deeper into how you got into speaking, could you tell us a little bit about how you got into semiconductors?
Sure. I did go to school. So I'm originally from Romania, and I went to
Okay.
school in Romania
Right,
studying electronics. And I moved here to the United States in 2003.
right,
And I started off from the bottom. I
right.
didn't have my diploma at that point, so I started off as a technician and kind of made my way up to uh, gaining some additional skills
Mhm,
to get better being a technician, and then moving into an engineering's role,
mhm,
switching companies, and then ultimately getting to where I'm at right now, which is a program manager for a large semiconductor company.
mhm.
This is 15 years in the making, or 17 years
Yeah,
in the making.
yeah. I think it's been impressive that you've emigrated in such a young age and
Uh,
managed to stay here, which I guess is harder. Um, can you share a little bit about how why you wanted to come to the US and how you actually got there?
yeah, it's funny because at that age, coming from Romania, there weren't that much opportunities, and
Yep.
so the
Yeah.
main driver that had me move to America was money. I
Right. Right.
you know I I keep telling the story where I worked in Romania for a month to buy two pairs of jeans, where today,
Right.
when I moved here, I worked for a day and I
Yeah.
bought more than a pair of jeans. And
Wow.
the contrast was so large that I thought, wow, I'm gonna live here and I'm gonna achieve the American dream.
It must be quite difficult to get into the US because everybody, well, not everybody, but a lot of people would like to get into the US. And you mentioned about, how poor the economy is in
Uh-huh.
Romania. I'm not sure how much, if it's doing better or not, but you said money is quite important to you, especially when you first started your career. Um,
Yeah.
can you tell us a little bit how bad it was at some stage in your career where money just seemed to be so recurring that you just can't get rid of it?
hmm I mean, the thing is, when we're younger, I don't know if this is your experience, but
Mm.
the main driver is to establish ourselves financially and to have
Yeah,
that large security. And
I,
that
I
was
can I
one.
do have these insecurities as well. I can promise you that.
Right, everybody does, and
Yeah.
that was my main driver when I moved here, is to just make something of myself and have a lot of financial stability. And that was my main driver for the
Mm.
longest time. And I I talk about the fact that I came here with an idea of what the American dream is,
Yeah.
and slowly through the years, I checked all the boxes.
Mm.
Get a diploma, check.
Yeah.
Go find a corporate job that you have a badge number that's assigned to you. Check. Get the red brick home. Check. Save
Mm.
for retirement. Get that 401k. All of those things I was doing, not necessarily because it was something that I was wanting to do. Is just that was the upbringing, the
Right.
influences from my parents, from society, from
Yeah.
my friends, everybody around me. That's what they were doing, and
Yeah.
that's exactly what drove me. And
Mm.
for a while, it was good because I had a goal and I had a purpose, but as I got that financial stability, and I was able to check all those boxes, the more I set into being comfortable financially, I started wondering, is there more to my life than just what other people tell me that I should
Oh,
be doing?
right. Um, I guess, your upbringing must have made a difference because it wasn't, a glamorous upbringing. How much would you say your upbringing has affected you?
Yeah, it's an interesting, years put things in perspective.
Yeah.
So looking back at the my time in Romania and working hard, my parents would take me to the countryside and having to
Mm.
farm potatoes and help them out with all these hard labor things
Right.
because we didn't have enough money. I hated it. It was
Mm.
just horrible. I
Mm.
wouldn't be able to play with my friends in the
Yeah.
weekend because I would have to go at the countryside and do all of these things. And at that time, it was something that I really didn't like. And
Mm.
only to, perspective and hindsight, years later, I realized that those things really instilled a lot of discipline in me to not shy away from putting in the extra hour and working hard to get something. And that,
Mhm.
looking back now, having a different mindset about it, it's like
Mm.
that upbringing, as
Mm.
tough as it was,
Yeah.
it was very beneficial.
Right.
And that's one of the things that, in time, people realize, we go through some hard things. it,
Yeah.
it is difficult, and nobody wants to, but as
Mm.
the years go by, you can pull from those hard moments things
Mm.
that you can learn from, and you recognize that they really help you. And that's what happened to me.
Well, yeah, I totally agree. A lot of people are afraid of failure, but once they fail, they find it's not that much of a deal, and they can look back on their failures to
Yeah.
draw strength from it. Um, but being in the semiconductor industry, there's good money to be earned. But was
Mhm.
there a stage where you thought it was too much, that you just can't keep pursuing money?
Yes. So I the previous company that I worked for,
Mm.
I was there for 11 years. And
Right.
for a while, I was happy and contented. I was getting that 401k, and
Yeah.
I got a little complacent as well.
Mhm. Mhm.
And in that time where everything in my life was fine, I keep talking about the fact that everything was fine, but nothing was fantastic. It was just okay.
Right.
And in that time, I had a lot of moments of reflection and a lot of wonderment of, is this it? Is that all that I'm going to have to live
Mhm.
for my life? Is just going on 2, 3 vacations a year and wait for retirement?
Mhm.
And those are the moments where I really contemplating on, can I do more with my life?
Mhm. Mhm.
When your change happens either from motivation or desperation. And I got to
Right.
tell you, I got to a desperate point where I really wanted to have something different in my life, but I
Mhm.
didn't know what. And that's when I had my wife really nudge me towards personal development, and I listened to a podcast in where there was the great Les Brown, who talked about the idea of a growth mindset, and the notion of we can do so much more than we think that we can do.
Mm. It's very interesting that you pull together. You use the same sentence with the two words money and desperation because when you first started out, and when a lot of people first started out, they would want to earn more money, and they wouldn't even think about being desperate at some stage when you've got more than enough money. So how shocked were you when you realized that you were still desperate when you think you had enough money?
Mhm. Yeah, it's interesting because you hear so many times, right? Money doesn't bring happiness,
Yeah.
and you
People
always
half
hear the
believe it,
counter.
people half don't believe it, I think.
Right. It's easy for someone to say that when they have the money, right? When
Yeah,
someone doesn't have the money, then it's hard to believe it. And
yeah.
I think it takes a level of getting there to a certain amount to really understand that, yes, money is a great facilitator and it's necessary to get to a certain point where you have that security and that stability in your life.
Mhm. Mhm.
To get to that point, that money is important, yes. But after that point, there has to be something more to your life than just chasing money. Because
Mm.
if the primary driver in your life is just money, you're never going to feel like you have enough, because there's always going to be someone around that's
Mhm.
going to have a lot more that you
Yeah,
want to achieve. It's like, I have to chase that car that's in front of me. And then once you
yeah.
get to that car, you're like, oh, let me chase the other one. And it's
Mhm.
never ending and it's never going to be satisfying.
Mm. If let's rewind the clock and let's say you're starting out in America again, you
Mhm.
don't have any money. Knowing that you already have enough money, but money doesn't buy happiness necessarily,
Mhm.
would you still put money as your first choice to, as your primary goal?
Or certainly not. Even now, when money is not my main driver, and it's kind of amusing because once I set money aside as not being my primary goal, I started making more money
Really?
than
Wow.
right. And I think life is about acquiring a set of skills that are important to us, that really help others. Like you're as good as your skill set. So whatever
Mm.
the level that you are at this moment,
Mm.
that's based on what your skill set is. And if you're looking to advance in any capacity, you have to improve your skill set. However, that skill set needs to be not necessarily driven towards money, right? That's one of the things I've recognized. It I made money, but then I wanted to do something a little bit more meaningful, a lot deeper. That's why I shifted
Mhm.
into speaking, uh,
Right. Right.
doing the public speaking and trying to motivate and help other people understand that there's more to life. And the more I got myself immersed into becoming a professional speaker and really amplifying
Yeah.
those skills also helped me in my career, where now I switched
Right.
jobs to where now I have a role where it's more significant because of my skills that
Right.
pays a lot
Right.
more.
Right. I see. I see. Just before I ask you more about your speaking career, would you say you've got any regrets in just, putting all your time and energy in chasing money in the first stage of your career?
You know, it's it's interesting because it's a very good question, because I can say yes and no
Right.
at
Right.
the same breath. Yes, we all have certain things that we wish we would do differently. However, those hard lessons that we had really helped shape who I am today. So I would also say no. The
Mhm.
thing is that we are all going through certain seasons in our lives. In my 20s, I was highly driven by ensuring that I have that safety and security that money would provide. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't look back at it and say, oh, that was a really bad period of my life. It
Mm.
was the stage that I was at that point
Yeah.
that I needed to go through. So, if when you're in your 20s, it's a little bit more, you're more stuff driven, like you want
Yeah.
things,
Yeah.
right? And then you get to be older and then you're more like career driven, like you want
Mm.
to establish yourself and have a name for yourself and so on and so forth. There's all these different seasons in your life that it all depends on what drives you at that point. So for me, that season was a necessary reason that I don't regret.
I see. I see. Well, that's a very good point you made. And, speaking about your speaking career, can
Mhm.
you tell us how you transitioned into it? Because I think you still have your full-time job, but now you're also
Mhm.
doing, a speaking side career. So, tell us a little bit how you balance both and how you got into it.
Yeah, the interesting part about speaking is that for the longest time I was trying to find my passion
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
know a lot of people try to find their passions, and I was looking all over for passion, not realizing that it's not external that I have to look for, but rather internal. And the
Right.
moment I started really searching inside my heart, what is it that I want to do? It really took me a long time. That
Mm,
time of frustration,
mm,
Tony Robbins says, right, where focus goes, energy flows. The
mm,
more I wanted to know what my passion is, I started reading books, I started listening to podcasts, I started immersing myself in discovering what is it that I want to do. The
mm,
more I was able to craft my passion, because I don't believe passion is something that we find, it's something that we build.
mm,
And that was the pivotal moment in my life where I was desperate into finding more than just my job. And I found the idea of a growth mindset, where it's a very easy concept, but it's very difficult to grasp for some, because we have certain limitations that we think we can only do certain things.
yeah.
I'm not that
Yeah.
smart. I'm not I'm not doing well with finances. I'm having a hard time with relationships, and we put those limitations on ourselves,
Yeah.
not realizing that with the growth mindset, as long as you do something for an extended period of time and you're dedicated and you're consistent, you can get better at anything.
Right. Right. Right.
And for me, I was terrible at speaking. I got to tell you, 5 years
Really.
ago, standing up in front of 5 people at my job and saying my name was terrifying. My
Wow.
cotton mouth couldn't get my heart rate to stop pounding
Mm,
out of my chest. It was terrible. But at
mm,
that exact time, out of that desperation, I found the idea of a growth mindset,
mm,
and I said, okay, if they say that I can do anything I set my mind to with practice and consistency, let
yeah.
me try to see if I can break out of this fear of speaking in front of others, because I do like to talk to people one-on-one. It's very difficult for me to stand in front of an audience, and that
Yeah.
kind of put me on a path of learning how to speak. And I
Yeah.
realized I'm kind of long-winded, but
Oh, it's
what
perfectly
what
fine.
happened is,
Mm,
I did a speech in front of maybe 20 people, and
yeah.
after my speech, an older gentleman came up to me with tears in his eyes and said that my story really moved him, because he
Mm,
really connected with my message. And
mm,
I didn't realize that storytelling and speaking has that kind of power. And
mm,
him being moved actually moved me to where
no,
that was the moment where I realized, oh, I actually am passionate about speaking. And
mm,
that's how I ended up speaking. And personal development is something that has helped me throughout this whole journey in the last 5 years. And I
yeah.
want to share with as many people as I can the
Mm,
idea of a growth mindset, and that we can do anything we set our mind to.
mm.
And that's to me is the secret of having a more happier and fulfilling life.
Wow, so this is quite unexpected because I thought you wanted to be a speaker from, quite a young age, but it seems like, you stumbled upon it. It's not by it's just coincidence, I think.
Yeah, it was out of desperation,
Mm,
combined with the fact that I wanted something beyond myself.
mm,
Speaking is, of course, it's cool to be in front of a large crowd and
yeah,
be able to dictate, to an audience and have them move. But it's even more impactful when you see that someone in the audience hears your message and they're so moved by it that they actually do something about it.
right, right. I see. I think I kind of get what you mean now, when you said, you can't just find your passion, but you've got to build on it, right? So, based on your experience, how did you manage to, build your passion,
Yeah,
aside from maybe speaking in different events?
yeah, passion is very difficult, right? Because especially in today's day and age, we have so many options.
Yeah,
That is, we get excited about certain things and we start doing them for a month, 2, 3, 4,
yeah,
and then we get bored.
yeah.
And the trick is to, when we have 1,000 things, to pick one and
Mm,
be bold enough to close the other doors. and
Hmm.
just immerse ourselves into whatever it is. And
Right.
as you immerse yourself into whatever that one thing that you feel like it could be a passion,
Mhm.
as you're doing it, if it gives you more energy than it takes. So
Mhm.
I'm writing speeches and I'm practicing,
Mhm.
and it's difficult, and I'm in my room and there's
Yeah.
nobody there, but I'm crafting it, and I
Mm.
recognize that, oh, 3 hours went by and I'm still here
Yeah.
enjoying what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's when you realize that it gives you so much more energy. You get into a flow, you're
Mhm.
excited about it. You don't need to tell anybody to brag about it. You just
Yeah.
love what you're doing. That's when you can be um, discovering your passion if you get that recipe.
Well, I really agree with this because, I don't get paid doing this podcast, but it's just something, I'm just really passionate about, and I really look forward to interviewing people. And I think you're starting out with your podcast as well, right? If you could tell us a little bit, or is it not? I thought you were.
I no
Maybe I misunderstood you. But have you thought of starting a podcast maybe because you love speaking?
Well, to be fair, I appreciate those who do start a
Hmm.
podcast, because I know it's a lot of work,
Hmm.
and I love being on podcasts like yours,
Hmm.
because it's a lot of effort that goes in it, right? It's not just this half hour or an hour of conversation. After that, there's so much work in the background,
Yeah.
and my focus is more on really crafting my message.
Hmm.
So that's one of the reasons why
Hmm.
it's too much effort, that it's moving away from my goal than
I
keeping me
see.
towards my goal.
Well, I wish I could afford to hire somebody to do all the editing, but I have to do it all myself. But from my perspective, I do think that having this 30-minute interview outweighs all the other admin effort I have to put in, at least now. But I guess it's the same with you when you're crafting your speech. There's quite a lot of admin work that you might have to do. Can you tell us a little bit more about the kind of speeches that you're making and your target audience?
Yeah, I am speaking to professionals I'm speaking to myself from
Mm,
5 years ago, when I was at a loss. I didn't know what to do. I was
right.
checked out, or burned out, whatever that phase is in your life, where you're really
Mm,
looking to feel that energy and that vibration in your life, in your day to day, and not feel like that, oh my God, is Monday type
yeah.
of feeling. I I'm